Welcome, everyone. This is Alex from Enlight Life, and I wanted to share with you a very important call that I just had in my mastermind. And in our mastermind, every week there's a call with an expert. And one of our experts that is really part of our team is Martin Pytela from Life Enthusiast. And I use his website and products in my protocols. And I like dipping into his wisdom. And we often, as we do in our mastermind, we talk about, different health issues and how to resolve them, because I never claim to have all the answers just by myself. We're all constantly learning, which is why I have a team of experts that is part of the mastermind and that supports me in the creation of all my protocols. And in today's call, we honed in on how do we resolve long-term COVID and how do we resolve and heal and regenerate from vaccine injuries. And we have people with those issues in my mastermind. We have people with those issues in my 21-day total autophagy. And of course, almost on a daily basis, I have someone reaching out to me on Instagram, really for the last 18, 24 months with these issues. And in this call, and of course, we have protocols for long-term COVID and vaccine injury in the mastermind. But in this call, what I loved about this call, and as we were discussing things in this call, I realized, hang on, I need to make this information available to everyone. And so even though typically these calls are really just exclusively reserved to members of my mastermind, this particular one, I thought everybody that has long-term COVID issues or knows someone and or, of course, vaccine injury needs to hear this. And if you will, strictly speaking, even anyone with any long-term chronic condition, autoimmune condition, nervous system dysregulation, neuro dysregulation, right? And the reason is because in this call, we really discuss how important it is not to lose sight of the basics, because we can get so bogged down by all the noise out there that's pulling our attention towards oh, this is the latest thing, cocktail of natural medicines that you need to take in order to overcome your issues. And then 2 days later we hear about a new cocktail and so forth. But what I see, and I pretty much look at all of these various doctors and publications and all the stuff that we're bombarded with that says, here is the cure. I've been looking at this for the last 2 years. And as much as every one of these suggestions, there's always a couple of things that I go, oh, okay, yeah, this is what we do and this is what I suggest. However, what I find missing so far in every single one of those suggestions, documents, whatever we want to call it, is the basics. The foundation is missing. And I'm not going to go over the foundation here in this kind of intro video, but that is exactly what I address with the 21-day. That's why the 21-day total autophagy is, it's a enzyme fasting protocol that I pretty much, any client, whether it's a private client or somebody that messages me and say, hey, what can I do for XYZ? That is always going to be the starting point. And, it is so easy for you out there to be confused. And even, those of us that have a lot of background in health and detox, we can still get confused, which is why I find it very necessary, especially in my position, to keep counsel with people like Martin, like David Fastigi, and other people that are not necessarily directly busy with helping people heal from vaccine injury or long-term COVID, but doctors, specialists, practitioners, because when I hear all positions, that's how we get to true wisdom. Instead of just hearing, one position, especially if that position is tied to a supplement company or, a particular industry. My point is everybody has their agenda. And I try as best as I can to remain neutral and undogmatic. And my only agenda is to see, well, how do we heal and regenerate without dogma, with maximum efficiency, and with the least detrimental effects? Because some detoxes do have a lot of detrimental effects that then you need to clean up. So there's always a payoff. Not a payoff, you know what I mean? There's always something that you need to consider, that you need to kind of take into account. Anyway, you know what I mean? So the reason why I am putting this video that we just did with Martin Pytela is so that you understand what are the steps, what are the foundational steps, and then what are the additional steps. And so that you can understand what is it going to take for you to heal and regenerate. It is possible, no matter what stage, level of dis-ease you are at, it is entirely possible, but it becomes increasingly difficult when we become discouraged because we are maybe under the impression that what we're doing is not working, when in reality, it simply takes time. Healing works in a spiral. It's not a straight line. And ultimately, no matter what we're dealing with, we're always going to have to deal with cleaning up the liver, improving the liver function, getting toxins out of the liver, and improving the function, the ability of the liver to deal with toxins. And similarly, we're always going to have to deal with the function of our digestive system and the colon. So how well are we eliminating? And anyway, listen to the call. It is fascinating. You are going to learn a lot. And I always say, no matter if you ever buy from me or not, the content that I put out there is always so that you learn no matter what. Then you can go and buy your products elsewhere. That's also fine. But the only thing that I would like is that you can say, okay, well, what I learned from Alex, so my agenda is, I want you to see, well, okay, what I learned here is what actually got me out of my situation. That's all. And spread the message, because, so many of us were caught in, and as I was for many years, caught in these endless cycles of healing our bodies with all these fancy methods out there, when in reality, it is quite simple, but we just have to keep on doing the same thing over and over. And of course, the right products do matter, and we discuss all of that in the call. Have a look at my 21-day total autophagy protocol, because it is the foundation of anything that you're going to do, healing, regeneration, rejuvenation wise. And, I always like to say, I like to wow and shock people. That's kind of my wild Aquarian side, that gets the satisfaction of that. And yes, wherever you're at, the 21-day will shock you and wow you. It will shock and wow even the most seasoned detox experts, fasting experts, and all of that. So I'm sending you all my love, and let me know your thoughts on the call. I think it's phenomenal information. Sending you all my love. Bye, everyone. So welcome, everyone. I am here once again with Martin Pytela, and I always enjoy poking around in his brain and saying, okay, so what are we going to talk about today, and where are we going to take this? And I've been feeling, again, reaching out a lot of people have been reaching out with vaccine injuries, and of course, scared of their various symptoms. In fact, in the group here, we have one woman who feels like she's suffering a little bit from Bell's palsy. And I mean, she's on Exula, she's on everything. And, a lot of things have improved, but the Bell's palsy seems to kind of stick.
Yeah. And so there are multiple issues coming up. First of all, it needs to be acknowledged that now it's coming out in press officially. There are studies that are acknowledging that this thing that's been labeled the SARS-CoV-2, colloquially COVID-19, is a man-made thing. It is artificial, no question, no bats. This was gain of function research done by the military, both US and Chinese. How it got out, we can't say whether it was intentional or accidental. That's not been disclosed, but it's definitely acknowledged that it's an artificial thing. The other research shows clearly that it's venom research. They have been messing around since 1975 with various venoms, snakes like krait and cobra, and cone snail, the sea creature that's the most poisonous thing on the planet, and some other. And these are peptides. These are not whole things, but these are peptides that are easily leaving traces. Like you look at it and say, oh my Lord, it is the same match for this string of aminos that match this peptide.
Fascinating. Yeah.
In these. Now, what's interesting about snakes, of course, that there are different modalities. Some will kill you by immobilizing you, like you stop your breathing. They will block your diaphragm from working, and there goes your oxygen, and you become sleepy, docile, whatever. You can't get away, and the snake has enough time to do its slow business with you. Others will cause bleeding. They will cause the same effect as a blood thinner, where you will all of a sudden bleed internally. But others have a peptide that will cause your blood to coagulate. These are blood clots. And we have seen both, right? The accidental, unexpected young athlete falling over on a soccer field or wherever they are. In Canada, we have seen 80 young, or at least healthy, doctors gone.
Wow.
Like people between 30 and 50 years old, and one of them triathlete. I mean, you can't imagine fitter, and yet gone. So those are those type of injuries. And then there is the neurological injury, which we're seeing, like some of it spills into the Guillain-Barré syndrome, where you have this inability to control your nerves. I've encountered a person who could run like a normal runner, but could not walk. It was bizarre. Running perfectly fine, but walking was out of question.
Wow.
And other injuries, and this, the paralysis, the facial paralysis is classic. Now, what's weird is that, of course, you can get Bell's palsy from either a blood clot to the brain, right, where you have a small clot that kills just a piece of your brain, the muscles that control your face, or it may be neurological. So now what, right? Well, I've listened to a bunch of lectures by very smart people, and the way it stacks up is that, number one, you want to be taking glutathione support, liver support, right? So that means NAC, that's an acetylcysteine, glutathione itself, we do have that in the liposomal form, because if you don't have it liposomal, your digestive system will take it apart before it gets anywhere.
Right.
So that helps with the detoxification or neutralization of toxic things. Quercetin works great. That goes, if you go back to the original stories, that was the hydroxychloroquine, which is a pharmaceutical version of quinine. In 1800s, 18 something, when British were colonizing India, they came up with the ditty, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. And that medicine was quinine, and they were taking the quinine because of malaria. And the grown man version of that is gin and tonic. You need the tonic, the gin is the option, but the tonic itself will deliver the quinine.
Interesting. Okay.
In my store, they call it angostura.
Yes, yes.
You probably know it from that, right?
Yeah, I love those. I love those. Now with NAC, there's been so much kind of controversy because in fact, it was actually Spencer Feldman from Remedy Link who, when I interviewed him, he said, oh no, we mustn't be taking NAC because it can drive the graphene deeper into the body.
Right. Okay. So now we're talking post-jab, which is a different situation from post-infection. Because when you take the normal infection, that does not include graphene.
All right.
However, you may get the graphene from the masks. Can you believe this? They actually put graphene fibers in masks. So
yeah, I had heard that, yeah.
And 3 days ago, I found a video where a sanitary pad, something you would use as a panty liner.
I saw that video.
Had a light, yeah, I pushed it on my Telegram.
Okay, that's where I saw it. Yes, yes, yes.
And this guy would take the strip from the middle of the pad and wet it, and then put an LED light bulb on it, and it would light up because all of a sudden it started electroconducting. Just
crazy.
bizarre. Well, anyway, so I'll go back to the snake theory, which is, you know, when a snake tries to deliver the stuff into your body, we'll use the fangs, right? Puncture you and deliver it straight into your bloodstream. Well, wouldn't you know it, they came up with the injection and they deliver it into your bloodstream. So that's the efficient delivery of the venom. And they don't actually collect this from these animals anymore. They just reproduce it now using pharmaceutical methods. It's made the same way as amino acids are made. You grow it in a pharmaceutical medium and it's just is reproduced using the, I don't know what, fungal, microbial, something terrain. So what do we need to do? So if it's from the natural, well, I keep backing up on myself because I'm firmly planted in the pleomorphic theory, saying that there is no such thing as a virus, right? There's exosome, which is identical in form, and the pleomorphic theory or the cell terrain theory will tell us that we do not get sick because the microbe invades us. We get sick because the terrain within us allows it to grow.
Yeah.
That the bugs are out there all the time. Like we are interacting with exosomes, is what people want to call it. I mean, you can call it virus, it doesn't matter. Don't matter what you call it, it still is this minuscule bit of protein that does not have its own reproductive ability. It has to hijack your own internal cell replication mechanism in order to replicate itself.
Right.
So it has to mutate with every transmission, right? Because for it to live, it must enter me, and my inner works will reproduce it and then spit it out somehow, and then it will enter you. And your inner works will have to work with it and do something with it until it's ready to be spit out from you to your whoever, right?
Right.
And so when we really think about it like that, that means that we can have people without symptoms because their inner terrain is well enough organized to not produce any drama with it.
Yeah. Yeah, like strictly speaking, you know, sort of as a parenthesis insert, when my children were following all my nutritional advice because they were too little to know otherwise, they had their first flu when my son was 13, my daughter was 11. That was their first experience of a flu.
Yes.
And until then, they had never experienced a cough and any of that. I think they maybe had half a day of fever because we didn't vaccinate them. So they did have, you know, the childhood diseases very mildly. And I remember
I guess that would coincide with them starting to hang out with friends and eating things other than what you served.
100%. It was exactly that. And you know, of course, now, I mean, they're still way better than most, but every now and again, they'll get a tummy bug, they'll get, you know, I mean, it's still not too bad. But I always say to them, well, you never had any of that until you started making your own food choices, which, you know, of course, they need to go through it. It's their learning journey, and I'm okay with that now. But it is an interesting lesson.
Right. So going back to the theory of it all, is that the natural interactions is that people who are toxic or living in a toxic environment, I have these 4 things that I always point, which is toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma. And the toxicity, of course, is presence of things in your body that should not be there. Malnutrition is absence of things that you are not getting that you should be getting. Stagnation is, of course, lack of circulation, lack of movement, lack of exercise, lack of lymphatic movement, and so on. And trauma, of course, well, we're emotional beings, so we constantly traumatize one another just by talking unkind words or just imagined things. And then lastly, we have introduced this invisible monster called Wi-Fi, EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, or I guess that's what it's called. And it's with the rollout of the 5G, things got dramatically worse. And where were the rollout of the 5G taking place? The most industrialized city in China, Detroit of China, Wuhan. The most industrialized part of Europe, Lombardy, near Milano.
Yeah.
New York City, and Seattle. That's where they were rolling out the early 5G. Coincidence, if you will, right?
Yeah.
I think, I call it the camel theory. The camel is being loaded up for the trip across the desert, and I'm throwing in 20-pound bags on top of the camel, and at 400 pound, the camel will still run. 500, it will not run. At 600, it will not go uphill, and at 700, it will kneel down and not get up. I'm making the numbers, but it's something like that. The point is that the camel doesn't care one bit what's in the bags.
Yeah.
Likewise, your immune system is getting loaded up with these 20-pound bags that you're throwing on. One bag is called cigarette smoke, another bag is called automobile exhaust, another one is called genetically modified potato, and so on, right? Just keep piling it on. And at some point, the fabulous last straw that breaks the camel's back arrives.
Yeah.
And the modern medicine insists that by research, it has to be the straw that they have labeled, that it's breaking the back, otherwise it doesn't count.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if it was 500 pounds and 501 was too much, they insist that that last pound has to be the whatever, the aspirin or the vitamin E or whatever it is that they're testing for that makes the difference, which is utter nonsense.
Totally.
Oh, so okay, so about the fixes, right? Like, so there you are with trouble. So you need to reverse these 4. Detoxify. I have promoted zeolite as the heavy metal detox, but EDTA will speed it up further. Humic and fulvic will improve the terrain and how things work. The detox. MSM, sulfur, dramatically improves the ability to get rid of things. Glutathione, of course, that's the methylation pathway, right? I guess we could start naming these things: methylation, sulfuration, phosphorylation. What is the last one? Oh, they're all running in your liver. Doesn't matter, right? Just label. We could label ourselves into oblivion.
So, I mean, ultimately, round and round we go. It is all about upregulating, cleansing the liver, getting the liver, which we know that the liver, you know, unless we've cared, and who has cared for the liver in the right way, the liver is really, it's the central organ that is connected to everything, including, of course, digestion and therefore elimination.
Yes.
And so round and round we go, and that's where we end up. We end up in the.
And it is directly tied to the health of the small and large intestine. What happens is whatever comes into your mouth goes into the stomach and the small intestine. And if your bowel is permeable, leaky gut, underdigested peptides make it through the wall into the bloodstream, portal vein, straight to the liver, right? So that's why. So if you have leaky gut, you're hitting the liver. Every time you eat the wrong thing, you hit it.
Yeah.
So fix the gut so that the liver doesn't suffer, cleanse the liver, and help with the detox. Liver has 2 functions, right? Phase 1, phase 2. There actually is a phase 3 detox as well. But the phase 2 is the methylation part, where you neutralize toxic things so that they may be filtered by the kidneys and eliminated. Because if they're not methylated correctly, they have to be sequestered, pushed aside, hidden somewhere. And the places they get hidden is in your fat and in your cartilage and your bone.
So that's why people with methylation issues are going to struggle to lose the weight.
No, gain it. People who are toxic will actually hold on to their fat.
That's what I mean. Like they will struggle to lose weight.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood you.
Right, they will struggle to lose weight because exactly the body's going to hold on for dear life to the fat.
Yes, correct. Yes. So that's the one, right? Fix your gut, cleanse your liver. Then we have the nutrients. You need to get all the right stuff. We definitely do a great job of that with Exula, where we are feeding you as well as we are able.
Yeah.
And then the lymphatics, well, you need to move. I can't do that for you.
Yeah, I always point out, and you know, this has been a repeated lesson of mine too, is that oftentimes I think we think because either we're fatigued, we're sick, or we're fasting and detoxing, it's like, oh, well, I don't need to move. I'm so low on energy anyway. And yet when we engage in movement of the lymphatic system, I find I always gain energy. I feel better. It's harder to get going. But it's definitely one of the most helpful things we can do.
I get on my rebounder, when I come off of it, I cannot wipe the joyful smile off my face because I am properly oxygenated somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've been stressing that in my group as well, because I see now that I'm, 4 times a week, I do intense training with a trainer, and every day I do my Kundalini yoga. And even though, I hate the training with the trainer, like during the session, I always go, oh my God, like I didn't think it was this hard.
Yeah, they push you, right?
Oh my gosh. But every single session that I'm done, it's like, wow, we need this. The body needs, and I can feel how the body responds by going, okay, we're going to get stronger.
Exactly that. And it's the use it or lose it.
Yeah, I would say, especially once we start nearing 50, is like weight training. I do regret that I didn't start earlier with specifically weight training, because I can see it's like, okay, it's definitely harder at this age.
Well, we can help you with the muscle mass by introducing the rejuvenating things like somatotropin stimulation, right? Growth hormone. So
absolutely.
I mean, the elk antler will help if you want. There's some other peptides you probably know about.
Yeah, Lazarus, I do find.
Oh yeah, gosh, yes, that works.
I mean, that's why, as you know, in my cart that I'm gonna now clear and get shipped, more Exula. I mean, I do find, that helps tremendously. And actually, as we're speaking here, I'm thinking that I'm going to post this very video also in my 21 day, even though, normally this is just for my mastermind, because there's so many people with vaccine injury. And yeah, I mean, as in every discussion that we have, and I want everybody out there to notice that we always go back to the basics. The basics.
You cannot sidestep it.
Yes. And
it's like this,
many
it's
rounds.
like this shirt, it's like this shirt. If I button it wrong on the beginning, I cannot ever get it right.
Absolutely, no matter what you do. And I think that is the one point that I want to drill into people. We need to stop looking for all these magical solutions out there, and we need to start doing we need to get the foundation right. And that, it always goes back to, as we said, detox, cleanse, liver, digestive system, and that we're going to be busy with that for many, many rounds. And then, of course, getting the right nutrition. And, there's nothing more powerful than Exela. And then, of course, there's all the other bits that we can add in peptide therapy and so forth. But
let me hit a couple of notes that go with. Number one, we were talking about thrombosis, about blood clots, right?
Yeah.
The number one tool of the natural sort is nattokinase. It's an enzyme that helps to change the blood clotting ability to normalize it. So it doesn't do too much. So if you have blood clotting issues, or if you already have some damage, or if you fear a blood clot that could cause your, I don't know, a stroke in the brain or a heart attack in the heart, or God knows what, then put yourself on some nattokinase support. We talked about you quite like the Arthur Andrew enzymes, right?
Yes, I do like those. There's the serapeptase.
Yeah. There's one called Neprinol,
right?
And one called Natovina, and they both do a fine job of it.
Yeah, and I always suggest to start out, well, not to start out, but to get yourself to the therapeutic dose, because that's the other mistake that I see people make, even with things like Synthol, to remove candida from the body when we're doing our cleanses. and that people don't take enough.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah, that's the my metaphor for that is you're coming to a house fire with a garden hose. The concept is correct. The volume is insufficient.
Absolutely. I see that's a number one mistake repeatedly. And so then, you're taking all the things and then you go, but I'm taking all the things. Yeah, but you're not taking it enough, and or you're still eating things that are going to be detrimental.
This is the push forward, push back, push forward, push back.
Yeah, so you're exactly,
push
it's
the
one
scale. Yeah, you need to push the scale in the right direction. So, okay, so that's about the clotting. And the other thing we do have, that's Spencer Feldman product. It's called Nervidine.
Mm-hmm.
And Nervidine is loaded with nervonic acid, which is the thing that will help rebuild nerves, damaged nerves. So if you are certain that you have what we would call the, what's it called? Nerve damage, let's call it that, then that should help.
Yeah. Yeah, and it takes time.
Yeah, it's a slow one.
I would say, another thing that we are seeing with many is forms of neuropathy.
Yeah.
And a lot of tingling in hands and feet.
Mm-hmm.
And well, those are, I guess it's a complex issue, meaning it's not just circulation, it is nerve damage.
Yeah, it could be all three, right? It could be toxicity. It could be physical damage. You may actually, maybe chiropractic is what you need, because if you have something going on in your spine that's blocking a nerve because it's twisted or turned, then it will always put extra pressure on that nerve and always have issue that you need to straighten it. Of course, there goes the yoga, right? If you are able to do yoga especially with instruction, especially if you have someone watching you and telling you where you are twisting and turning that is actually not aligned, you will find spots that need releasing, let's call it that. Yeah, so that would be the neurological stuff. Lecithin, a curious, simple little thing.
Yeah.
Lecithin is made with phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine, and those are the building blocks of your brain and of your nerves. So the more
with lecithin, which I'm a huge fan of lecithin, but now, so what is the difference between taking lecithin in its natural form versus, for example, Quicksilver Labs? They have a PC.
Yeah.
So what is it?
That's a phosphatidylcholine, which is a fraction of. Right. Well, so for example, the lecithin we sell starts as sunflower. Sunflower seed is pressed. From that, you make sunflower seed oil. That you will apply an organic solvent to, either alcohol or what is this? Hexane, probably. And with that, they will separate the fat from the solid. And then what we buy is we buy de-oiled, powdered, dried, organic lecithin. So the one that's not de-oiled will rancidize, because oils will rancidize under oxygen. It's just, right? So we remove the oil so it doesn't rancidize. Companies will get around it by putting the liquid lecithin into capsules. So when you swallow it, you don't taste it, so you don't know that it's rancid.
Yeah, never a good idea to buy lecithin capsules.
Right. So that's the story. Now, of course, so you can then further separate the phosphatidylcholine PC from the phosphatidylserine and have just that fraction. And that fraction is much better at forming the liposomes, right? Like it's stronger at the liposomal. It makes smaller liposomes, which is the claim to fame by Quicksilver, that their
Right.
liposomes are sub 90 nanometer, which is great because they penetrate properly as they should.
Okay, so you would say, well, which one would you advise?
Nutritionally, if I'm going to just eat it,
Yeah.
I mean, at Exula, we use large amounts of lecithin to make all of the foods. Lecithin is an emulsifier. Lecithin is in a human body what soap is in your washing dishes. It connects fats with water. It's the detergent because it's lipophilic on one end and hydrophilic on the other end, right? That's the idea. So when we put that in, it allows us to emulsify things and transport things that are made with fat or fatty in a water drink or water-based drink or a water-based medium like your blood, sweat, urine, lymph, all of that. So when you have lots of lecithin, you will transport fats, lipids, way more efficiently.
Okay, so you would say, in other words, I mean, if we're taking enough of the Exula products, strictly speaking, do we need to add in extra lecithin or the PC from Quicksilver?
Depends on the state of health, right?
Right.
If I need, well, look at me, for example. Today I had a smoothie. In it, it had a tablespoon of Aura Fit, which is one of the green ones. It had a teaspoon of maca. It had 2 teaspoons of lecithin, a cup of blueberries, an apple, pinch of salt. What else did I throw in there? I think that's about it. Yeah, anyway. Oh, and a spoonful of coconut oil, which is why I put the lecithin in there. I want to make sure that the coconut oil will blend with the water. So I put the extra lecithin in that. So that's my story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, I love lecithin, and I just trust that even my love for it, there's a reason, you know, I often sprinkle it on top of my fruit.
Yes, absolutely. Great idea.
Okay, so I mean, I feel like, you know, again, we've given a lot of information, context, and because ultimately what happens with people is that they get onto the program, you know, they buy the Exula, they're on the Exula, they're doing the liver cleanses, they're doing the colon cleanses, they're doing the Panaceum and all the things, you know, Synthol and so forth. But it says, oh, but I'm not getting better, or I'm not getting radically better fast enough. And this is where we always have to remind, well, sometimes even in the beginning, it can even get a little bit worse because you're setting so many things in motion. And remember that you're also setting things in motion that you didn't even know were underlying issues that, you know, have now kind of been brought to our attention by either becoming, you know, infected with long COVID or suffering the symptoms of long COVID, I should say, because it's saying that you become infected is not the correct term, or you're suffering the consequences of the vaccine injury, and then there's all the backlog that you now have to deal with.
Well, so something just reminded me that I didn't say this. We have a product called Amazing O and Amazing Soak. And these are the main ingredient in it is called Fulton chlorides, which is a blend of chlorides that produce hypochlorous acid when ingested. And that is the same acid that your white blood cell will release when it's trying to kill off an invader. So you can, in fact, either ingest if you're trying to do something with your digestive, or better yet, inhale this thing. So you make a 2% solution of this, and you can spray it in your mouth with a sprayer, or better yet, if you have a nebulizer, just put it over your face and just inhale the thing. And
okay, great.
Nebulizer means misting, right? Nebula
Yeah.
is fog. So you're pushing the fine mist of this thing into your lungs, which of course is a gateway to all of these airborne things, right? Like
Yeah.
we already know that the transmission of the corona is done through aerosols, things flying in the air. So it comes through your lungs, your nose, sinuses, and so on. So when you put this in your body, it will help the body neutralize, help the immune system neutralize whatever's there, regardless of what that is.
Right.
I've had a fellow wrote it up, 6 months long COVID, just miserable, bedridden, horrible. Day one of this was 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, inhale 2% solution. After the first night, he got out of bed and felt okay. After the second day, went for a walk. After the third day, went for a run.
Wow.
3 days after 6 months of horrible. So
Wow.
I don't know if I can promise it to everyone, but it will clear the load.
Yeah. And I think lastly, I want to sort of say, because, and again, you know, I have compassion for people who don't understand the mechanisms of how the body gets diseased and how it regenerates. And so, you know, people will try something because, oh, everybody says that product is amazing. And then they get disappointed because maybe it doesn't work as fast or as dramatically on them. But that doesn't mean, I want to say it here on record, it doesn't mean that these products aren't doing their job. It's a bit like the enzymes, it's like the Exula, all the products, you know, I really do, I stand by every single product that I recommend, knowing that it is a powerful, powerful product. However, for some of us, it may take a little bit longer. And the key is, don't get discouraged, but simply keep on doing the basic things. Keep on doing the basic things. And then every now and again, question yourself and see, what am I not doing? Because, you know, years ago when I was bedridden and I was trying to get better, for probably the first 2 years, I kept hanging on to my 1 cup of coffee. I was doing everything right to the T, but that 1 cup of coffee, I couldn't let it go. And eventually my then coach said to me, well, you're still drinking that 1 cup of coffee. Okay, you gotta let it go now. And reluctantly, you know, I ummed and ahed. It still took weeks. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to do this experiment. Because in my mind, I couldn't understand that that 1 cup of coffee could potentially have anything to do with me not getting certain results. Well, sure enough, letting go of that 1 cup of coffee, within 3 months, I mean, even sooner, but within 3 months, I saw such dramatic changes in my nervous system that I was like, okay, I will not ever go back to coffee. Every night, like literally maybe 3 times a year, I have 3 sips of coffee from somebody else.
Yeah. Well,
for the fun of it.
there's always, you can have I don't know what, a tiramisu dessert, right?
Yeah, well, now I've got some amazing amino acids that I'm trying out more for muscle building, along with your aminos, where they have like a coffee taste. There's no coffee in it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about it, but it reminds me of like the coffee that I used to drink in Italy. So it's like, well, this is enough.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, a nice espresso is a nice espresso.
It is. And you know, here we're
It's
also
interesting.
saying,
Yeah. You know, I'll share this. I love the taste and smell of coffee. I don't drink it, but I will, I don't know, now and then I'll just go buy something and smell it just for fun of it, right?
Totally. I mean, every now and again you walk past a coffee shop, oh my God, or opening a new jar of coffee.
Yeah.
it is amazing. And then it's like while we're healing, especially because it's not that you can never again
Yeah.
have, but it's understanding that especially when we're trying to heal and regenerate from certain weaknesses, we have to actually walk a straight and narrow line. That is my experience.
Well, I need to pop in yet again my favorite thing, which is the metabolic typing education. That's what I really do, right? Endocrine dominances, there are 4: thyroid, adrenal, pituitary, and gonadal or ovarian for women. All men are testosterone driven beyond, so we don't even count that. Anyway, the thyroid dominant do terribly with stimulants, which means coffee, tea, chocolate, but especially coffee, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, the adrenal dominant can handle it. So if you are adrenal dominant, this conversation will sound like nonsense to you. Okay.
Makes complete sense. Yeah, and I agree. I've never done well on stimulants.
Right, because of your endocrine dominance. So you need to take it in account. The biological individuality of every one of you out there is important. You need to eat according to that. You need to understand your metabolic type, which is you're either an oxidizer type, which makes fats make you more alkaline and starches make you more acidic, or you're the other way around. It's known as autonomic, and you are going to be made alkaline by carbs and make acidic by starches, by fats and proteins. And it's important because many books and many people out there ignore this, and they just write as if everybody was like them. And it's not like that. You cannot do what makes you worse and persist.
Yeah. We need to take our individual weaknesses and strength into account so that we can move forward. So the endocrine, the adrenal dominant will do better on starches than on fats.
Well, an adrenal dominant person will gain weight with fats, but they will be attracted to it. Their temptation food is savory, so they would love salami, bacon, steak, whatever.
Right.
And if they overdo fats, they'll gain weight. So you have these an adrenal type makes a great linebacker on a football team. These are the strong guys with legs. The calves are like so, and the thighs are like that. And you know, their chests are like deep and whatever. And they can go all day long. Like they can sling 20-kilo bags all day long without trouble. Anyway, so as long as they do heavy physical output, they can eat lots of calories. But when they stop, then they must switch to a salad and steak, lean protein and a lot of veggies. Otherwise, they put on weight like you wouldn't believe. And a favorite snack for them would be fruit, whereas a favorite snack for you or me, my type, would be a piece of protein, like an egg. Something like that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Martin. This, as always, was, super interesting. And by the way, for those of you that are listening, because I do want to post this particular video in my other group, always look at my protocols where I have listed the products that I suggest from Life Enthusiast, and how to combine them, the Exula and Synthol and all the various products that we've discussed here, so that you can actually follow a protocol and you can actually move the needle forward in your process of detoxification and regeneration, because it's always both. We can't detox. We also need the regeneration process, and we need to alternate so that slowly, because healing is a spiral. It's not a straight line. It's not something that you quickly get done, you know, as some of us think, like, I'm going to go really hard. I'm going to get all the things, do all the things. And then we burn out because we actually have not respected our biology, our rhythm. So please do it correctly and you will have the results, because we have enough people raving about you know, all the protocols that we have available. And as always, thank you, Martin, so much for your input. And I personally love that, you know, round and round we go, we always, with every discussion, and I'm still learning, you know, after all the years, and I'm still learning. It's like, yes, come back to the basics, come back to basics, which I repeat to others, but as I hear it, you know, I was like, oh, just another layer of remembrance, because otherwise we can overcomplicate things and get lost in all these details that we're bombarded with. And then we wonder, why are we not getting better? But
this gesture, this gesture.
No.
Every time you point a finger at something, there are 3 pointing back at you.
Yes.
And it's that, right? Like I live the same thing. Every time I open my mouth to try and explain something to another person, I'm explaining it to myself.
Completely. And that really, the beauty is, it is not that complicated. Let's not also get caught in fear, especially those of you experiencing all of these symptoms. You can recover, you can get better. Just do the right things at the right pace, which is always the pace of love. So thank you for your time, Martin. I so appreciate you, and we will speak again in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.